Hi, welcome to The Table, the podcast where we share real stories, struggles, and victories as we walk together in faith. We are continuing our series on some of the things that make community challenging. And this week, like all the other weeks, there's tons of good encouragement tucked into this conversation. We're talking about what it feels like, what it looks like to show up and be present in spaces where you're not surrounded by believers, and how to let the love of Jesus show in those everyday moments. Take opportunities as they come and walk through those doors to start having conversations about Jesus whenever they happen. But we've also talked about forgiveness, parenting, lots of other topics tucked into this conversation as well. So please join me as I welcome my guest, Julie O'Brien, to the podcast this week. Let's get to it.
How are
Welcome
you?
to the table.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation today. I want to just introduce you to our listeners. And I was thinking about this earlier today as I was preparing for this conversation. Months ago when I prepared initially, when we talked, I thought about like how our friendship began and how this is just a really special opportunity for me to get to have you here because you're probably the first person on the podcast that I had a professional relationship with before a personal friendship. So I am excited, and I don't know if you remember this, but I will not ever forget it.
Oh, me
Um,
too.
we have known each other. It won't be bad. We've known each other for several years now. We've worked together for several years on different things, and I don't know what we were working on or why we were talking one on one, but we were. And I was in a really difficult place, making hard decisions, doing hard things, which I like to not do hard things. And I will never forget us talking and you saying, "Do you care if I just pray for you for a second? Can I just pray for what is going on in your life?" And I was like, this is a person in my place of work that just asked me if I wanted prayer. And it was such a blessing to me in that moment where I felt so separated. I think my faith and my work felt so separated, and for you to step in that moment and offer that, I'm pretty sure I remember very clearly going to my really close friends, my people, and saying, "You won't believe what happened to me at work today." This nowhere somebody offered to pray for me, and it was just the most perfect prayer for exactly what I needed, and you didn't know any of that. So anyways, I was tickled when you were willing to come here and talk with me today.
To
But
do it.
tell everybody else what you think they should know about you.
Goodness. Okay. Well, I love Catherine just to pieces. She has been. She just told you that story, but what she doesn't know is what it looked like on my side because I was really nervous. I was like, "Can I pray for you?" And then inside, I was like, "Ugh," because it is a work environment. It's a professional environment, but why I said it, only God knows. And I was just obedient to that instruction. I'm glad, um, of course, that I was. I've been a professional trainer, learning coordinator, teacher for, oh, golly whiz. Um, honestly, honestly, over 40 years. So I've taught a lot of different courses, everything from kindergartners all the way up to college educated individuals and above. So I've sort of taught the gamut, but my favorite thing is teaching communication. So everything written and spoken and nonverbal communication is kind of where my passion lies.
I think that sets you up to be the perfect person to have this particular conversation with today. So I'm excited to kind of lean into your expertise
Okay.
there. But before we get started, for everybody that listens knows this, we asked our guests 3 questions, and we're doing this. We ask these questions to kind of set an example or role model what it looks like to have some healthy community around you and some of the parts of your life that you can share with your community on a regular basis to keep you connected. So the first one of those questions, Julie, is about what fuels your spirit. How are you fueling your spirit? What are you studying? What are you reading? What fuels your spirit?
Well, right now, and this has always been the case for me, for some reason, I really like taking a verse, whatever verse it is, and breaking it down into different little components. Looking at what it looks like like, let's say the verse has grace in it. Okay, where else in the Bible did it use grace in this way? Where does the word grace come from? What is the original, you know, Hebrew or Aramaic of that word? And so that's what I look at, and that's what I love to study because it really does open up the meaning of a verse much more clearly than I would get by just reading it alone. So that's how I study. That's how I feed it.
Mm-hmm. There's I don't know because I don't know a lot about this, but the term verse mapping, does that mean anything to you?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
I have it on an app and I have it in written form, and so I can do it anywhere, and that's very handy to
Yeah.
me.
What app do you use?
It's Verse Mapping Bible, and it is
Okay.
I found it as a result of Blue Letter Bible,
Okay.
which is another app which does amazing for that kind of work. They have so many ways that you can like break down a verse.
Okay,
So
I'm gonna link that in the show notes for our listeners if they want to check that out. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna check that out myself. All right, second question is about fellowship. So, where are you finding fellowship, Julie, in the last little bit? What are some of your favorite places to find fellowship?
I've been thinking about this question because I knew it was coming up, and I'm in a rough spot because simply of well, my demographic, I have grown children, but I'm not retired. So people who are in my age range often are retired, and people who are professional usually have young children, and then of course there's even younger mothers. But I'm going to be just honest. I'm having a hard time finding a church, a community that I can kind of coalesce with. So what I've been doing is looking online, finding different, even different influencers or different churches to kind of see, okay, I can listen to this online. It's over in Kansas City and I'm here in Nashville, but you know, I will go to social media to look at things, and then I will dig deeper into what that influencer's beliefs really are, and hopefully that will give me some sort of a place to go for quote unquote community. But community is a two-way street. It's what you
Yeah,
bring and then what others bring back to you. Haven't really found that yet. I'm not going to stop
yeah,
looking because I don't think
yeah,
that's God's will for me to stop looking. So I'm going to keep looking. I'm going to keep listening. And if for some reason God wants me to himself these days, I'm going to have to learn to be okay with that and just listen to him. Actually, I think that might be what's going on, where he's like, you know, community is lovely. I need you to cling to me right now.
yeah, yeah. I appreciate you being honest because I bet there's other people who are in the same boat, and it will just give them like the space to take that sigh of relief that they're not the only one. And I think that is something that we can like pray for you too. I would love to pray for that for you and that the Lord just opens the right doors at the right time. Um, okay, well that one that was question number 2. Question number 3 is about forgiveness. So, Julie, to me, who you know semi well, and a bunch of people who you don't know at all, why don't you tell us something you need forgiveness for?
Oh, I am a champion grudge holder.
Mm,
It is not something that you're proud of at all, but that's what I'm trying to lay down my monogrammed Louis Vuitton luggage of baggage, lay it
yeah,
down and walk away from it. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if I'm ever somebody comes to me and apologizes or I give forgiveness. The forgiveness they should be chasing, if they haven't already, is the forgiveness of Jesus. And if it comes literally, if it comes down to come to me and get my forgiveness for whatever it's worth, or go to the foot of the cross, go to the foot of the
go to the
cross.
Father.
That's what I that's what I want. I say that and I mean it with all of my heart, but my stubborn self still sometimes will rear up, and that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, I
Another
think your
question that
analogy
I
of
was like, "Ooh, she's gonna ask
I
this."
know, I know. It's such a heavy hitter. I wonder how many people actually talk about that in their community. But I love that you talk about the luggage because I think that's a good analogy because it does weigh you down. It kind of like it's something that you have to pull along with you, and it just kind of uh, weighs you down as you carry it. And I am the same way. I would not say I'm a grudge holder, but my husband would say that I do is I remember all the times that I'm frustrated or all the times that I think he could have handled something better. We'll just use him as an example. And I won't say anything in the moment. I'll be real calm, collected. I will let it go. And then something really insignificant will happen, and I will just, all of those things will come out on him, which is horrible. I'm not proud of that either. I'm working through
No,
it.
it is
It's
horrible, but it is
hard.
so human. It is
It
so
is,
human.
yeah.
Sometimes in my mind, I envision Jesus walking hand in hand with me and having to like tug me
Yeah.
along. You don't need that, Julie. You don't need that. I'm here with you. But I just want to remind them of one thing. No.
I know. I know. Yeah, I was reading this book lately, or I'm reading this book, and it talks about how we would think that when we're in the middle of sin and like just cannot do things on our own, that we would think Jesus would be like repulsed by that and like pushed away from us in those moments. But the book's point is that in those moments, he comes even closer to us, just like you do with a sick kid. Like you don't
Yeah.
send your sick kid away to like get better and then you're ready to be back with them when they're well. Like it brings you closer to them and you tend to them and you care for them and you hold on to them a little bit tighter in those moments. And I thought that was so sweet as I
Yeah.
wrestle with all the places where I'm not, measuring up or not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It loves us in a way that he draws us closer when I would probably push myself away or push other people away when they can't get their stuff together. So, no, I think that's a great answer. I just appreciate you being honest and sharing because I think a lot of people probably have some of those same struggles. We're all learning, we're all growing. You have already said some things that reminded me or like cemented for me why we brought you here today to have this conversation. And so, for all of our listeners, we're in this series about community, shocker, but specifically things that make community kind of difficult. Like, what are some challenges in the community space? And we've talked about how it can be really hard if you're more of a shy person, like if you're not really outgoing, if you're more introverted, finding new community can be really tough because it's so outside of your comfort zone. And what do we do with that? How do you move forward with that? We talked about last week, we talked about what does it look like when you're building new community? Like, this doesn't just happen overnight. You don't just form relationships with people overnight. It's a very much a two-way street, like you just mentioned, and that takes time. And so, what does it look like as you're building new community? And today we're going to talk about what does it look like to show up as your authentic self, your child of God self, when the people that you're surrounded with right now maybe aren't believers. And how is that difficult? How is it difficult to find community when you have people, when you're maybe the people closest to you, the people that you're around every day, don't share your same beliefs? So tell me a little bit, you don't have to tell me, tell the listeners why this is something like near to your heart.
Well, I think when I first approached you, it was near to my heart because my authenticity was being called out at that very point in time. When I first reached out to you, the whole thing about, how do people see you as an authentic child of God? I was getting some pushback. I am a really loving, friendly person. My husband is an introvert, and he will like catapult me into a room full of people before him so that I can kind of
Yeah,
swim through it, and
yeah,
and then he just follows kind of in my wake, which is, I'm happy I'm happy to be that, kind of icebreaker for him, but it's authentically who I am. I can't I can't be any other different way. And honestly, my mom was the same way. My mom is one of the sweetest, most genuine women I have ever known. And people used to look at her and not believe that she could be for real. No one could be that nice. I can remember hearing that
yeah,
growing up all the time. Nobody's that nice. Yeah, they are. I just happened to be raised by her. I was blessed enough to have her as my mom. Um, but the thing, the thing that connects those two things is my personality is called into question sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And then when I have an opportunity to talk about my faith, if my earthly personality is called into question, so is my faith.
yeah.
They're like, oh, she's super, super sweet and she can talk to anybody and she loves Jesus.
Hmm.
I roll. It's
Right.
like, what do I do with that? I and that's part of the whole letting go of the grudge. It's not up to me to do anything with it. I'm called to do what I do, show up how I'm supposed to show up with authenticity, do what my Father in heaven tells me to do, and chips fall where they may. And there will
That's so
always be
hard.
people who love you, and there will always be people who do not. And thankfully, that's not I don't have to fix that.
Yeah.
So I just, authenticity has been kind of a lifelong struggle, because I saw it with my mother, and then as I grew up in her footsteps, I was hearing the same things only aimed at me. You
Towards
can't
you.
really be
Yeah.
this nice. And then, oh, you don't really believe that. And I grew up from bristling at that to realizing I don't have to bristle at that. I know. I know. He knows. So if you want to know, I'm happy to explain it to you. And if you don't right now, I'm just going to pray for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that in my generation, there is a lot, and probably younger. I don't even know what generation we're in now, honestly. In recent generations, maybe I should say that. There's a huge emphasis on being for real, like being true to who you are, not being fake, being authentic. And so it's interesting that you were getting those you were getting those comments as you were growing up, and now the emphasis is even so much more on showing up authentically in your space. And I have a really hard time. Um, I have a really hard time not like letting what people think kind of fall by the wayside, like not worrying about what people think in the way that I show up. And so I'm excited to get to kind of talk more about what that's looked like for you in your life. What about like if you're in a space that's not faith centered, not in a faith space? Um, what have you ever had the temptation to like tone down your faith or your chipper, happy attitude, or even to that's like part A of my question to tone it down. Or what about to be only show up like really at the top of your game? Like look like you've got it all together because you are the believer
I am
in the
poster
group.
child for
Yeah.
belief. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eh, eh. Um, I would sometimes love to show up as a dimmer, shielded version of who I am. And when I've tried, it doesn't last. It literally like because I feel like I'm suffocating. There's things I want to say. There's things I'm driven to say out loud, whether they are faith centered or they're kindness centered. And if I try to fit into someone else's perception of me, it's not gonna work. I will, in fact, be fake.
Yeah.
So that's no good. That's no fun. And with my life, it has been blessed, and I have had some really hard times. At the same, both things can be true. You're
Yeah.
blessed,
I agree.
and you have moments where you are just. It feels like Jesus might be dragging you by your foot because you're like on the ground, and he's like, "Come on, honey, let's go." And when I'm like that, I think that I am taken to places where either people have something to say that will help me or I'm there to help them. And I never know which one it's going to be. But I have, well, I'll tell the story.
Tell us the story.
I'll tell you a story. It's a sad story, but then ultimately a happy story. Our first child, um, I miscarried when I was about 9, 10 weeks along. So not a long time, but definitely long enough to pick
Yeah.
out pick out names and colleges and future plans and dreams and basically
Yeah.
this darling
Everything.
baby's life
Yeah.
planned out. And then the miscarriage happened. And then we were in the midst of buying a house because I'm going to have a baby. So of course
Because
the
you're
next thing you do
right.
is buy a house. And our loan officer, I had to go see her to sign some papers. And it was like one of my first days back at work. So I'm like dressed as a professional. I almost have like armor on. I'm holding my emotions very tightly in check, and I sit down at her desk, and she's like, "Okay, here's your papers, and are you okay?" And I lost it.
Hmm.
And I was like, "No, I am not okay." And I told her what had happened, and she reached over and touched my hand, and she said, "Me too." And I said, "You too, what?" And she had lost her child. She had lost her baby in a miscarriage. And she said, and I've never had anybody to talk to about it. And we sat there in the middle of a loan officer's office and held hands and just let our grief be shared instead of
Yeah.
carried by ourselves.
On your own. Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I would go through walking through those loan officers' doors 100 times if I could bring and receive the kind of comfort that I felt that
Yeah.
day. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. I went from feeling like I was a catastrophic failure to someone I could share my story with and be a comfort to them and them be a comfort to me.
And
And if
that's
I'm
so
not
important. We need that.
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think we prayed right there at her desk. She was a believer as well. So it was like, oh, this is the reason why I had to come to here today.
Right. Yeah. And it's crazy how the Lord works those things out. Like the day that you were going to be closing or signing those, whatever you were doing, was the day that you needed that, and how the Holy Spirit orchestrated that moment because you probably needed some comfort in that time. It's just really cool to, it's a great example of bearing one another's burdens.
Yeah,
And you didn't
yeah.
even expect it, right? It wasn't even something that you planned or,
No,
um,
I was shocked and I can still
yeah,
feel the shock.
yeah. Yeah, that's such a good story. I mean, that's a great example. It's not a good story. I'm so sorry that
It's
that's part of your
no,
story. But
it is a good story because it is healing. It has shown how God took care of his child, his children,
yeah,
his daughters.
yeah, yeah. I know that there are, well, I know we work in the same place. So I know that you have times when you are with, like, in a crowd of people that are not believers, and I don't know the people that you work with. But when you enter new spaces, I know you've been entering a lot of new spaces lately.
Mhm,
When you
mhm.
enter new spaces, do you lead with, I am a believer and I am a Christian and I have like this faith and this relationship? Or do you lead with your character first? Do you let your character speak for itself first and kind of let those doors open as they come?
The second one. I lead with my character first because my friendliness and energy is a lot to take in, and I figured let 'em get over that. And then, hey, by the way, they want to know about Jesus. I'm happy to provide.
Right. You're happy to share.
But I love watching. I mean, people have called them God winks or God moments, and I regard them as here we go again. That's what I call it because he's done this so many times in my life where it's almost like he points and he goes, that one,
Yeah.
that one. So I go talk to that one. And not all the time, but many times we end up talking about matters of faith.
Yeah. Give me, this is really not what we prepared to talk about, but I'm going to just take this rabbit trail if that's okay.
Going rogue. She's going rogue.
I'm going
Okay.
rogue.
Going
Will you give me an example? And then I have a follow. Can you think of an example? Like, tell me something that's happened recently where you didn't necessarily intend for it to be like a faith thing
sure,
conversation,
sure,
but that's where it landed.
sure, sure. Um, there was an opportunity I had to be a part of an orientation program for an entity that is coming into where you and I work. And so we spent many days with this brand new population of employees talking to them all about, what we offer as far as why it's such a great place to work or benefits, et cetera, et cetera. And I had just gotten done talking for 4 hours and I really didn't have a voice. And a young man came up to me and I felt that nudge and I was like, that one, that one. Okay,
Right now?
right now, that one. Okay, I hope he can
Uh,
hear a whisper.
right.
But it turns out he had a misunderstanding around some of his benefits and he wanted to just kind of he didn't want to create a ruckus. And I was like, "Oh, I don't have much of a voice left, but I could create a ruckus for you. So come on, let's go ahead and get this taken care of." And so I took him. I'm not an expert in benefits. I took him to the ones that know benefits 100 times better than I do, and he got it straightened out. And that was at 7:30 at night. And then I had one more talk. And at 9:30, when I was leaving, he came running down the hallway, 9:30 p.m. And he's running down the hallway. And I said, oh, hey, so? And he goes, it's all straightened out. And he goes, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I said, you're welcome. I wanted to talk to you because I felt the Lord had a message or a way that if I couldn't help, I knew that the Lord would help me guide you to the people who could. And that's what happened. He goes, that is what happened. I was like, that is what happened. He goes, he watches over us. I'm like, yes, he does. And I'm like,
Yeah, even with your benefits, like he cares about all of
he,
those little
he does.
things.
And
And
he does care about it because that's how we live now. Of course, he's going to
he
care
cares about us.
about about how we see how he provides for us.
Right. Yeah. That's a great story. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot. I forgot what my follow-up question was going to be, so it'll come to me later. But
It'll
thank
come
you for
to you
letting
later.
me take us on this like rabbit trail. How do you share your convictions, your faith, what God is doing in your life on a daily basis? Like what does that look like?
Basically, on a daily basis, what it looks like is being prepared to answer the tough questions, even when it doesn't put you in a good light. I have 3 grown children, and they are of an age where faith has stopped being something only on Wednesdays and Sundays and become day to day life. And so I've been pretty transparent with them about how I have fallen short, how I have felt that I didn't do what God intended for me to do, and the ramifications of that. Because when you talk about how you live, the success stories are amazing, but the stories where you screw up and you're still
Hmm.
loved, I think mean even more. So there's times where, I've just had to bow out of situations and company that was no longer serving me. And, I walk away with love for those people and never a closed door. They can
Hmm.
always contact me, but I know my limitations and I know my parameters. And so I share successes, I share failures, I share love. That's how I do it.
What is that? Okay, I'm gonna ask a follow-up question too. When you talk about with your grown kids, this is a really redemptive rabbit trail. When you talk about things that you did in your daily life with your kids and what your daily life of faith looks like now, is there any like wisdom that you would share to a mom of children that are small and trying to navigate what it looks like to have those successes and those failures?
Mhm. My children have told me they don't remember what I say, which is disappointing, but they remember they re, did you tell us that, Mom? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but they watched me. And now the conversations that bring me to tears is when they say something, like how they responded to someone who was unkind to them and how they kind of doubled down on the kindness. I was like, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I'm like, man, I don't know if I could have done that. And they say to me, but Mom, you're the one who showed us how to do that.
Yeah.
I was like,
Like you set the
oh,
example. Yeah.
well, um, when you have babies, mm, they're watching you all the time. So if you can tell them, tell them. If you can show them, that seems to be what stuck with mine.
Hmm.
So just let them learn by not only your words, but your actions. And I have fallen short as a mother horrifically so many times. Um, there's a small animal, and I cannot even think of the name of the animal right now. This animal, it's from Australia, and you're going to have to like put this in the notes for the podcast. But this animal,
Okay.
when it's cornered, will throw its young at a predator so that the mother can get away.
Can't get away.
Can get away. I've never done that. I'm proud to say I've never done that. So in the back of my mind, I'm always like, at least I'm not like that.
It could be worse.
It could be worse. It could be worse. Just look to the animal kingdom.
That is really funny.
Turtles leave their eggs. You know,
Yeah. Stranded. Yes. Um,
but
what what about in your I'm gonna ask you about your professional life or just in circles where you're not in like a faith space. Do you tend to do you think the same thing applies? Like people, I mean, they might listen to what you say, but they really pay attention to how you act.
150% if I could go that extreme. So look, because they've been conditioned, I think, sometimes to believe what they see and not what people say.
Yeah.
So when they observe you physically walking them from place to place, where we work is a big place and it is full of tunnels and corridors and different buildings. And when you are walking people from place to place and you're like, okay, you know what? Here's where you have to go. And I know exactly how to get there. So just let me walk with you. It's like you see hours of anxiety fall off of them. And when I think about it, that's really our job as Christ followers.
Yeah.
I'm following him. He knows where he's going. I'm trusting him. Come on with me. We'll both follow.
Let's do it together. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe
Yeah.
that's community.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. That's a great picture of community. And a really good example of just having people that go with you where you're trying to go. And like there are things that you know because of your life and your experiences that I don't know yet. And there are things that I know that my sister, who's 10 years younger than me, doesn't know yet because of my experience. And we just kind of all team up together and we're all heading in the same direction towards the same goal, but together. I think that's a great example of community.
I say we all
Let me
get in
see.
line and hold hands.
That would
Make a
be
train.
great. Can you drag me? Can you just drag me along? Um, okay. This this question, I'm just curious to see what you're gonna say. So, not being in a faith space all the time. And honestly, I don't know that there's a lot of people who get to just, well, there are some, but there's not a ton of people who have the opportunity to just live in a faith space all the time. Like their job is ministry focused or something. And so they're just always around believers. How how do you stay encouraged when you've been walking the walk? You've been showing up, you've been putting in the work, you're doing your best to reflect Jesus in the space that you're in, and you don't see any spiritual fruit whatsoever in the people around you.
I guess I think that God intends for the spiritual fruit to be from me at this time. So I
Yeah,
don't get
but this is
very
a season for you
discouraged.
to grow.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't get so discouraged. He is the gardener. He is the vineyard keeper. Those that don't produce fruit are ultimately in his keeping. Um, I just ask that whatever I can do, I will show love, peace, joy. But it's hard when I think there's a difference between being able to be joyful in tribulation and being happy. I want to be happy. Don't get me wrong. But I think there's a song that says there's no price on peace of mind. This I've come to know. And there really isn't. So even when nothing else is showing up for me as far as fruit, if I know that I am grounded and rooted in that particular situation, because my life has a lot of ground roots going in a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
And if I know where I was planted over there, if I know that that was God's idea and God's direction and it was under his blessing, I leave it alone. I leave it alone and I continue to do what I need to
Keep
do
doing.
and I leave the results to him.
Yeah. I think
Hard
that's going
though.
to be so encouraging. It is so hard because I am someone who likes to have results right away. And I want to see the things happen right away and the changes happen right away. And sometimes it takes time. I think that's going to be really encouraging. I just think about like the wife who her husband is not a believer, or who someone in a relationship is not where they want it to be. It's broken right now, and it just takes time to heal, and it can feel like you're showing up, you're doing everything you can to, win your husband over to the Lord, or to fix that broken relationship, and it just takes time and it's not changing. And I love that you said go back to where he has you. Like, he has you where he has you. You have to trust that he's going to produce the fruit in us and make the changes. Ultimately, he's in control of it all. So you just have to rest in his provision. I think that's going to be that's encouraging for sure.
And I wonder too if sometimes we have a set idea of what the results will look like and so we miss them.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I know that I once had a group of friends that I thought I'd be friends with forever, and that was going to be the result. Oh, and I was ultimately, of course, going to win them to Christ.
Yeah.
Turns out that was not for them to come to him is absolutely in his will. Absolutely in his will. And I am praying that however, whenever that happens, let it go and
That
let
it
that be
happens.
for
Yeah.
them. Let it happen for them. But he had to take me out. He had to take me out and away from those people. And I went kicking and screaming, wailing, wailing, and just so unhappy. But that was the result that I believe was ultimately what was for the best of everyone involved. And if I had stayed there, I don't I don't know what would have happened because I didn't have a choice. When God decides it's time for you to go, you'll go.
You just have to listen. Yeah.
Hmm.
That is really hard because you're right. Sometimes I do this too. Like, I have the idea of what the perfect solution is to this thing that I'm working through, and then it ends up that the thing gets fixed, or that we have resolution, but it doesn't look anything like what I thought it was going to. And most of the time, I mean, probably all the time, I'm grateful. I wish I'd noticed that sooner, but I'm always grateful that the Lord did what he thought was best in that situation, because it's usually better than how I thought it was going to resolve. But it doesn't make it hard. It is. Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard. We talked about this a little bit a couple of episodes ago, but I want to get your take on it too. So you're showing up in these spaces every day where we both are. Everyone, probably everybody listening to. We're always showing up in spaces where people are getting to know us, and they're seeing us in our day-to-day life, and they're believers, not believers. How do you how do you start to have some of those deeper connections with people? Like, how do you find, I guess, the right relationships that you want to grow deeper? And then how do you take them from like surface level to the good stuff? Like the deeper conversation. What does that look like for you?
Um, because I am who I am and the way that I am, I tend to fall in love with people very easily.
Yeah, pretty
And
quickly.
yeah, yeah. And so I am very much drawn to people who will pursue me as a friend. And that's kind of where I see God moving the most, and opening doors the most in my life. It's like, oh, you really want to spend time with me? Oh, you really want to go have coffee with me? Because I'm
Hmm.
always the one to invite. So when somebody invites me, that lets me know that there has somehow been a deeper connection made. And then I listen. I listen a lot. And usually I will hear a turn of phrase or something, and I'll be like, well, where did you get that from? Well, my preacher was talking about it on Sunday. And I'm like, ding,
Yeah,
ding, 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 ding.
there's your door. Yeah,
That's my door. That's my door. Or that's their door that they just
yeah,
opened for me and I need to
right,
walk through it. It doesn't
yeah,
matter if I walk through theirs or they walk through mine as long as we end up as friends who honor God together.
right. Oh yes, I love that. We've been talking a lot about saying yes and how hard that can be sometimes, and how hard it can be to like step out and initiate that conversation. So I love your perspective of your personality is just different, and you love all the people. And so you look for the people who reciprocate that back to you, and you say yes. Like you just say yes when the opportunities present, and then the doors open after that. But it takes that like step of faith to say yes in the first place. I love that. I'm glad you shared that.
Although I have I have also had situations where somebody was very, very stern, very non-responsive, and
Hmm.
I've been like, let's see what we can do with this.
Yeah.
And and I try to leave them in a better place than I found them.
And you found
And
them. Yeah. What else, Julie, do you have in your notes? Did you want to say about community that we haven't talked about yet?
if you're willing to listen and to trust, and I'm saying this to me, but if there's anybody out there that this helps, I'm thrilled that it does. If you're willing to listen and trust, I believe that we are led to where we need to be. Right now, I'm not being led really particularly anywhere. I sense that time is coming to an end and that I will eventually find a church home um, that I will grow and love to be a part of. But I've I've grown as a little single plant here in Tennessee because I had water and I had nutrients and I had sunshine.
Hmm.
So I'll grow until the time comes where I know where I should be. And if any of our listeners are in Tennessee and they love their church, I just put it in, let us know.
Yeah, tell us. Oh,
I
we
just
can
love
hook you
to
up with a list of churches. We got you, Julie. Don't you worry.
that's what it looked
Um,
like.
yeah, I would like that for you too. Um, but I would argue, I won't argue with you. I would counter that you have been like the Lord has brought people into your life. You might not have a formal, you might not be formally planted somewhere in this moment, but that the Lord has been, I know He has been providing for you all this time, while you're searching, while you're looking, while you're growing. And I'm grateful that we were able to um, have this relationship with each other
How did
too
it
in
ever
this season.
happen? How did this ever occur? I can't even remember a day that I didn't know and love and admire you. I don't even remember.
You're sweet. I don't know how it happened either, but I'm grateful that it did. And I'm grateful that you said yes to
I,
this. Thank you so much
it was my
for
pleasure, really.
being here. We will be back next week to talk about another community challenge that a lot of people face. But until then, thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to the table. We hope today's conversation encouraged you as you seek Jesus in the big moments and the little ones. Check out the show notes for any scripture, resources, whatever we talked about today. Feel free to share this episode, leave a comment, ask a question, or share your thoughts with us. Come back and join us again next week. We'll be right here. If you haven't already, go follow or subscribe wherever you listen and find us on socials to catch up if you don't have time to listen throughout the week. or just to find out what all the next episodes are about. Also, we know you have things to say, examples to share, wisdom to give. So look for opportunities this week to share with those around you or even with us. All right, we'll see you next time.